Okay, welcome to Dictate Boxing, the first official YouTube video since, we'll call it a rebrand, because this was the boxing room. It is no longer the boxing room, it is Dictate Boxing now. If you're wondering what Dictate Boxing is, then go on any other social media platform, search up Dictate Boxing, and there you have it. That is basically a boxing media company that I've been growing for around 2-3 years, and I was basically thinking earlier while driving to the gym, why have I got different brands when I could just put it all together, make life a lot more easier? And so basically, yeah, I decided to do that. I decided to remove all the videos up until this point, all the many videos up until this point, and start from scratch. And if you've been subscribing up until this point, I urge you to still remain subscribed. If you've come from any of the other social media platforms to this channel, I urge you to press subscribe. Again, it's not just going to be this type of content coming out throughout the year. I think we're going to have a really big year of doing a variety of different content as we develop and progress through the boxing media space. And what a week to start as well. Obviously, we've got some massive fights this weekend. The big one being the headliner for the Ring Magazine card at Madison Square Garden in New York between Teofimo Lopez and Shakur Stevenson. Obviously, Shakur Stevenson bidding to become a 4-weight world champion against a very good Teofimo Lopez, a fight which I would consider being a 50-50 fight, even though many have Shakur Stevenson being the favourite. We'll get into that in a minute. I want to talk about a couple of the other fights that are taking place on separate cards this weekend. And they're both at £154. In my opinion, the most stacked division in boxing. You got Xander Zayas against Abbas Baru on Top Rank's website, which is kind of fucking weird because it should really be on TV, but they obviously have no deal or partnership with any broadcaster, so it's just going to be on their website, I believe. A really big fight to some degree. I think Xander Zayas will get the job done, but for me, the bigger fight that takes place that night at £154 is Josh Kelly bidding to become a world champion for the first time as a professional against Bakhram Murtazaliev, an absolute killer. Probably the most avoided man at £154, the holder of the IBF world title at £154. It will be in Newcastle, so Josh Kelly will have his home support. And I don't know if you lot have seen the face-offs that we've seen so far. Obviously, we had tonight, literally just before I hit record on this video, we seen them do the press conference and then faced off. But last night, they did the first face-off of fight week in a local Newcastle gym. Obviously, Matchroom have started doing this thing where they'll go to a local gym. It looks kind of run down. They'll get a load of the local lads behind the shot of the face-off, just shouting loads of shit, basically. And the two fighters will come face-to-face and do a face-off. You had Josh Kelly coming in with a lot of confidence, smiling, smirking, laughing, tapping on the belt, saying, "This is coming home with me." And Bakhram was just no reaction, no word said for the entirety of the face-off, completely stoic, and same happened again tonight. And the face-off ended with a little bit of nudging between them. I think Bakhram was like tensing and then like nudged Josh slightly, so Josh gave him a fucking shoulder badge. Bakhram didn't like that. But do you know what? As a Josh Kelly fan, as a British boxing fan, I want to see this. Everyone else is shit scared of Bakhram Murtazaliev. And Josh Kelly's coming in, this pretty boy, someone that looks like he should be, you know, in a Hollywood movie, is coming in and saying, "No, I'm a talented guy. This is my time now, and I should be taking this world title from you." And I think a lot of people are really underestimating Josh Kelly here. You know, this is someone that came through the Olympics, did really well in the Olympics, was signed by Eddie Hearn in Matchroom, and was, you know, destined to go on and be this superstar in boxing, let alone British boxing. It's not quite worked out, but even remember what Adam Booth, his coach, was saying. Obviously, Adam Booth has coached the likes of David Haye, Ryan Burnett, these sort of guys, and he said, "This is the most talented fighter I've ever worked with." Unfortunately, in boxing, it just doesn't always come down to talent. And we saw him massively tested against David Avanesian a few years ago. I think that was his last fight for Eddie Hearn in Matchroom. He lost that fight, and Avanesian really showed his experience in there. And I think that fight did come too soon. I think they really did roll the dice with that one. A lot of people are saying that this fight this weekend is the final roll of the dice for Josh Kelly. I think that's a little bit harsh. You know, when you're going in against a Murtazaliev, I think there can be a slight exception if you lose that fight, unless you're a Virgil Ortiz or a Jerome Boots Ennis. You know, this is a Josh Kelly that's been fighting on Friday nights on Channel 5 for the best part of the last, 3-4 years under the Sauerland brothers, against names we've never heard of. You know, his best win in this time has either been Ishmael Davis or against Troy Williamson, which has actually aged quite well, bearing in mind where Troy Williamson is now. But it's very different, with no disrespect, very different going from a Troy Williamson and an Ishmael Davis to a Bakhram Murtazaliev. Completely different ballgame. And so, yeah, a very big test this weekend. Can Josh Kelly do it? I think, look, I just said it a minute ago, a lot of people are really down on Josh Kelly, but I think people forget the talent and the skill that Josh Kelly has. And essentially, if he can survive for 12 rounds and pick his shots well and avoid getting caught with a heavy bang, then I think there's every chance Josh Kelly's victorious on the weekend. Do I think that's going to happen? I'm not quite sure. Bakhram is just a killer. Just go back and watch his fight against Tim Tszyu. He absolutely annihilated him, and we can only go off what we've seen with Josh Kelly. I know right now you'd consider Josh Kelly at the age he's at, he should really be in his prime. So you'd say if he's going to reach the potential we all thought he had back then, many years ago, it would be right now. Problem is, we've seen him in there against Avanesian, even Ray Robinson on the undercard of Anthony Joshua, Andy Ruiz at Madison Square Garden. You know, he came through as this raw talent, really exciting. Went in there against an experienced Ray Robinson, gassed out in the second half of the fight, and I think he got a draw. And a lot of people thought he probably should have lost that fight. But will he do it? I don't know. If he does it, this has got to be up there with one of the best wins from a British fighter. Surely. I mean, is it bigger than Dalton Smith going to New York and beating Subriel Matias? I don't know. Maybe in terms of who they're fighting, it might be more significant, but I guess Dalton Smith going to away soil, New York City, and winning that fight against the Boogeyman might be a little bit better. So I don't know. Nonetheless, it'd be a massive, massive moment for British boxing. But anyways, let's move on to the biggest card of the weekend. The biggest fight so far this year. I know we're only in January, but I reckon by the end of 2026, we'll be looking at this fight as still being in, I'd say, the top 3 biggest fights of the year. And that is, of course, between Teofimo Lopez and Shakur Stevenson. If Shakur Stevenson wins this fight, you're looking at someone hunting down that top spot in the pound-for-pound rankings, no? I mean, a 4-weight world champion at the age he's at, there's got to be serious conversations at that point. You know, even a Teofimo Lopez, I think many of us would say he sits in our personal top 15 pound-for-pound rankings in the world right now. This is a Teofimo Lopez who's defeated the likes of Vasily Lomachenko, Josh Taylor, 2 of the very best southpaws of the past generation. So if anyone's going to beat this Shakur Stevenson, obviously a southpaw himself, Teofimo Lopez might be the best position to do so. This is a Teofimo Lopez who, to me, seems very focused as well. We're not seeing anything coming out from him. Usually we see a lot of antics and, you know, a lot of game playing. But so far, I know we're on Thursday currently, so there's a lot of room for him to up the ante a little bit. So far, he's been dead silent. There's been nothing from Teo. So that would suggest to me that he knows what he's fighting this weekend. And he is the underdog. From many people consider Shakur Stevenson to be the favourite for this fight. I probably would agree, but I think people need to start putting some more respect on Teofimo Lopez's name. This is a very good Teofimo Lopez, in my opinion. Out of the 5 Americans that all sort of came through together, obviously Javante, Devin, Shakur, Teo and Ryan, I would look at a Teofimo Lopez as being the most athletically gifted out of all 5 of those. I've said that before. And sometimes when you've got someone that's a very good boxer but also has those athletic advantages, physical advantages, that brings another aspect into a matchup that could be so close, so tight between him and a Shakur Stevenson. Obviously, if this fight becomes a chess match, Teo's not going to win this fight. You know, Shakur Stevenson is a master chess player. This is a Shakur Stevenson who proved a lot of doubters wrong in his last fight against William Zepeda. Obviously, up until that point, he was getting slammed a lot for being a very boring fighter. I understand now a lot of people would still not run to the TV to watch Shakur Stevenson fight, especially that Edwin De Los Santos fight. But he did prove to everybody in his last fight against Zepeda that he's willing to sit in the pocket and trade. And he did very well doing that. I mean, that was one of his best performances so far. And when you look at the best punch accuracy in pound-for-pound boxing, in my opinion, goes to Shakur Stevenson. I think when he figures out the distance and the timing, it's game over. And I guess it's a question of, can Teofimo Lopez find a way around that? He did against Lomachenko. I mean, against Lomachenko, he found a way to snuff out the angle creating. the punch variation and the constant pressure and movement. Teofimo Lopez was the first, and I still think only, fighter to fight Lomachenko and find an answer to the skill set that Loma had. Obviously, people will talk about Devin Haney and obviously Salido. Salido made it very difficult and dirty against Lomachenko. And in my opinion, Devin Haney didn't win that fight against Loma. And at that point, Loma was just really pushing the boundaries of what weight divisions he could go into, because he was way too good for the weight divisions he should have been competing in. But Teo found a way around that. And not just that, Josh Taylor, former undisputed world champion Josh Taylor. Very, very good performance against Josh Taylor. But I think when you talk about Teofimo Lopez, I think the doubt around him comes from some of his performances. When you look at Sandor Martin, Jermaine Ortiz, when he's in there in fights that he's expected to perform in and expected to win emphatically in, he doesn't necessarily turn up. You know, we saw him lose against George Kambosos Jr. But the counter to that is when he's on the biggest stage, when the lights are brightest, Teofimo Lopez turns up. He's proven it in the past. And the lights are most certainly brightest this weekend. And an opportunity for whoever wins this to put their names in the forefront of being the face of American boxing. It might be a little bit too ambitious to say the face of boxing right now, but certainly within the next 3-4 years, you know, the winner of this fight will be putting their name in that conversation to be that. You know, we've spoken in the past about who is going to take that mantle and be the face of USA boxing. Obviously, the likes of Jerome Boutsenis, these sort of guys, they need to be proving it this year in 2026, and this is the perfect opportunity to be that guy. Now, we've also got Keyshawn Davis fighting on the card against Jermaine Ortiz. Jermaine Ortiz, who is actually in a nice bit of form at the moment since his loss to Teofimo Lopez, and I think we remember that performance against Teo. When was that? It must have been about 3-4 years ago, something like that. And Teo really didn't perform that well against Jermaine Ortiz. Jermaine Ortiz made it very difficult for Teofimo Lopez. And he's got an opportunity here to fight a big name in Keyshawn Davis. A Keyshawn Davis who's new at the weight. You know, the last time we were expected to see Keyshawn Davis, last minute cancelled because he didn't make weight. But since then, he's come out and he's expressed his his mental problems around then. So, yeah, an opportunity to go prove himself to the fans, Keyshawn Davis, because really, he needs to be looking at Teofimo Lopez after this fight and saying, look, if Teo loses that fight and Keyshawn performs really well against Jermaine Ortiz, I'm going to assume a lot of people will match them two up for a fight next, no? Obviously, Jarrell Miller also fighting on the card. We've got Bruce Carrington fighting on the card. And have we got another one on there? Oh, Carlos Adames versus Amo Williams. That's a really good fight as well. Big test for Amo Williams against a Carlos Adames, who I think a lot of us didn't realise how good he was until he fought Hamza Shiraz. Probably should have won that fight against Hamza. Hamza was very lucky to get a draw in that fight. So, yeah, very tough test for Amo Williams. But I'm going to leave it at that. Obviously, I've already gone through all of this a couple of days ago. So if you're already subscribing here, you've just listened to me repeat myself. I've probably missed out some of the stuff, but I just wanted to get the first video out for Dictate Boxing. And I'm going to leave it at that anyways. Go follow Dictate Boxing on Twitter, on Instagram, on TikTok, and obviously subscribe to Dictate Boxing here on YouTube. Go like the video. Let me know what you think down below in the comments. And we will speak very soon.